Hi, and welcome to Celebration Bar Review. We are in the final stages, really, of our top 10 countdown, and today I want to talk about myth number 3 when we talk about the top 10 myths about the bar exam. This is a big one, and it should tell you we've kind of come to the heart of the matter now. This myth is one that's dear to many of you, and it's the question of issue spotting. I suppose if I had to say what title I'd give this discussion, it would be, I need to spot all the issues. Here's the problem with issue spotting, and it's very fundamental. The problem essentially is that most people can't define what the word issue means. Now you might say, well, that's silly. Everyone knows what an issue is, sort of Potter Stewart in pornography, I guess. But I would challenge you this way. If you and I went issue spotting or hunting for issues, and I'd never seen an issue before, and I said to you, tell me, what am I looking for? I think you would find it very hard to define or describe what a legal issue is. I say that because for more than 20 years I've been asking students to help me understand what that word means, and I've gotten no good answer in that period of time. Oh, you might say it's a legal problem, it's a legal conflict or quandary, it's a legal rule of law, it's an issue. Yeah, that's the problem. It's defined by itself. It becomes sort of an endless loop. An issue is an issue is an issue. Now, I recognize that most people grew up on issue spotting in law school. I dare say before you went to law school, no matter where you went in the world, you'd never heard of issue spotting. But when you got to law school, there was a kindly professor in your first year who said, you must spot all the issues. Why? What? What does that mean? The truth is it meant something different for everybody that was reading and everybody that was writing. How often did you walk out of an exam, maybe even a bar exam, and say, I don't know if I spotted all the issues? Well, duh. It would be hard to do that since you don't know what they are. You see, I think that the word issue is essentially a placeholder. It's a piece of sloppy language that we use to talk about anything that we think is problematic. And here's the danger in writing about anything that's problematic when it comes to the bar exam. Unlike your law school exams that we talked about in one of the prior myths, this is not a 4 or 5 hour test on one subject that you studied for a semester or two. This is a 30-minute, 45-minute, 1-hour essay as part of an overall proficiency exam. The bar examiner certainly can't be interested in whether or not you can spot all the issues, whatever that means, in this subject in that limited amount of time. So there has to be a way to narrow down what they're interested in. And the way that they do it, in my experience, is that they create disputes or conflicts or problems to be resolved between the parties. That's the way the questions are drafted. The skill that's being tested, as we'll talk about in myth number 2, is a different skill than you might need on the multi-state or in a performance test. But the skill essentially is, can you take the law as you know it and make an argument on both sides of that dispute? Now, if you replace the word issue spotting with the word dispute or the word conflict, you have the essence, I think, of a much better piece of work. If instead of trying to spot all the issues, you try to spot all the conflicts in the question, now you're talking about a defined set. Now you know when the parties are in conflict or when they're not. Let me give you a basic example. Let's say that you have a contracts hypothetical, and in this question you're told that a contract exists between plaintiff and defendant, and that the defendant has already acknowledged that they're going to breach the contract. Now, rationally, you would know that this is probably a remedies question, not really a contracts question. But if you're an issue spotter, here's the way you think about it. Well, there's a contract mentioned there. I better talk about all the elements of contract formation, and then I better talk about what it takes for a breach, and then I better get to the remedies. Wait a minute. The examiners didn't want you to write about the contract or the breach. They gave you that. They wanted you to write about the dispute. What's in dispute between these parties are the remedies. Think about it this way. Let's say that instead of a bar or a law school hypo, now you're actually going to court in that contracts problem and you're representing the plaintiff. And you walk into court on Monday morning and you say, Judge, glad to be here in this matter of plaintiff versus defendant, and I want to begin by telling you that we're going to go through all the elements of contract today, and tomorrow we'll go through all the elements having to do with breach, and on Wednesday we'll get to the remedies. Wait a minute, counselor. That's stipulated that there was a contract, and it's stipulated that there's a breach. What are you doing? Well, Your Honor, I learned in law school and from Mega Bar Review that I have to go through all the elements because that way I'm spotting issues. Are you nuts? I mean, The judge's got things to do, the jury's got things to do, the other counsel's got things to do, your client's got things to do. Why are you going through all that? You wouldn't be allowed to do it. And if you're not allowed to do it in practice, why would the bar examiners reward that behavior? Why would they say, you just go ahead now and you spot all the issues and then we'll pass you? Now, I know what some of you are thinking. And I know that this is a real cherished item. I get pillared on some of the boards around the country because I don't teach issue spotting. It's a badge I'm pretty proud to wear, but here's what happens. The people that issue spot and try to write about the issues cover everything that their little brains can come up with, or their big brains more appropriately, and along the way, guess what? They manage to cover enough conflicts and disputes that they get a passing answer. But here's the interesting part. When you compare our pass rates to the mega bar review or the state pass rates where issue spotting is the norm, we're typically 20, 30, 40% higher pass rate. Gee, I wonder why that is. Do we teach different law? No. Do we teach some secret or trick? Not really. We just tell people to write about what's in dispute. Now, it seems to me that if you know what you've got to write about, it's a whole lot easier to spend your time, in my contracts example, writing about the remedies for 30 or 45 minutes or an hour, instead of spending half or three-quarters of that time writing about what doesn't matter. And then in your over-eager attempt to put everything on the paper, maybe you get lucky enough to get some of the disputes that the examiners were actually looking for. And then you confidently walk away with your bar membership in hand and you say, you know, that issue spotting, that really worked well. Well, here's a news flash for you. You aren't going to issue spot in practice. You're not going to issue spot in any environment except unless you become a law school teacher. Interesting philosophy. Interesting approach, really. And so you might say, well, why do the big bar reviews teach issue spotting? It's really very simple. It's a matter of economics. It's much easier to get students to just do what they've been doing, to know that your bar pass rate isn't going to change much one way or the other because you are the bar pass rate. And you tell people, issue spot like crazy. Write about everything in the mad hope that you'll cover something that actually matters. Well, that's a strategy. It's not one I like, and it's not one that's worked for us at all, and we don't do it, and our students do so much better, that I think it's a very important myth. You see, I think if what you're trying to do is just write about whatever comes into your brain, if you're trying to find all the possible issues, you're doing the legal equivalent of three-card Monte. Now, many years ago, when I was in New York City, living in Manhattan, I used to see these guys on the street corner, and they'd have a little table set up and 3 cards, 2 black, 1 red, typically, and the cards were face down, and you put your money down, and all you had to do was find the red card, and the dealer would shuffle them around, and you just picked which one was red. Well, here's the problem. The 3-card Monte dealer was very good at picking up that red card in the middle of the shuffle and replacing it with a 3rd black card. You know what that means? You never won. It didn't matter which card you picked, it was going to be black. You see, you couldn't win that game. In the same way, you really can't win at issue spotting because you never know what it is you're looking for. If you're looking for the conflicts or the disputes, those are real, they're tangible, you can put your arms around them, you can see them, you can write about them, you can make arguments. But if you're issue spotting, you're really relying just on what you've memorized, what you can recite, what you hope is there. You know, we've all heard people say, gosh, I don't think I spotted all the issues on that test, but I hope I got enough of them. That's a pretty crappy way to go through a bar exam when the stakes are this high. And so I strongly encourage you, no matter what bar review course or what approach you're taking, don't issue spot. It's not a good way to live. It's not a good way to write an essay. It isn't something you're going to do in practice. It has no value once you left law school. And so for that reason alone, you should really think about what you're doing when you write an essay. Think about what the examiners were doing when they wrote the question and deliver a response that's responsive to what they're asking. Don't play 3-card Monte with them. You can't win. You can't write about every possible issue because you can't define the term. Well, you can see I'm on a roll. We're headed towards the top 2, and if this was my number 3, hold on. Number 1 and 2 on our myth of, or our top 10 myth countdown are going to be well worth watching. Thanks so much for your time. Good luck, and stay away from that issue spotting. It's a loser. Take care. Have a good week.